thank you guys for your support of this podcast. I want to encourage you, if you're listening and you're not a subscriber, it's free. Just click the subscribe button. That helps my rankings on iTunes, and it helps us keep track of the number of listeners. I appreciate you doing that. It's free. Tell your friends about it. I also want to thank the sponsors. I want to thank you guys for supporting those sponsors. I want to thank GoHunt.com Gear Shop, my friend Cody Nelson of 20-plus years. He's the optics manager there. He helps J. Scott Outdoors listeners every single day. If you're in the market for binoculars, spotting scopes, rifle scopes, tripods, anything to do with glassing, give Cody a call, 702-847-8747, extension 2. Tell him I sent you. He'll take care of you. I want to thank Go Hunt for their sponsorship. I also want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting. KUIU is the gear that I wear on all of my hunts. You can go on my Instagram account at J. Scott Outdoors and check out, I do reviews. I also do about 3 times a week a question and answer session with listeners and Instagram followers and answer a bunch of questions about KUIU. To find out more about KUIU, you can go to KUIU.com. I want to thank them for their sponsorship. I also want to thank PhoneScope. Go to phonescope.com, use the JScott19 promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount. That is the digiscoping adapter I use on my iPhone X. And last but not least, I want to thank OnXMaps.com. Use the JScott19 promo code. Now, you're going to sign up, and then they're going to send you an email, and you use the JScott19 promo code, and that's going to save you 20%. I love the public versus private land overlays on OnXMaps. It's replaced the handheld GPS for me. I love the tracking. It's got the breadcrumb feature that tracks you in and out. And I love the fact that you can scroll from topo to aerial view just by pushing a button. So check out OnXMaps. Use the JScott19 promo code. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have a good friend of mine, Mike Hancock of Burnt Timber Outfitters on the line. Mikey, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Jay.
It's going to be fun to talk to you today about Arizona elk hunting. Before we get to that, usually you do some antelope hunts. Did you have any tags this year or get out in the antelope woods at all?
Yes, I've been scouting antelope. I have a client in 3A, but that hunt is one of the late ones that doesn't start until the first week of October. So haven't got out and actually hunted, just been scouting a lot and spent a lot of time out in that unit.
So those hunts are a little bit later than some of the other antelope hunts. How do you see that hunt going? I know you guys historically have done very, very well up there in those units that you like, but how is that first week of October season date?
I really like it, Jay. The rut seems to be going a little bit more, and September's always a month that, maybe those really old mature bucks actually come out of the woods and will spend times where they're a little bit more visible. It's it's just like the elk rut. I think that September first week is just a little bit early. Granted, those archery bucks, those mule deer buck antelope bucks like to spend a lot of time with those does, but those big mature bucks, quite often we'll find them single and hiding out in the trees. But that October date tends to pull them out. So I really like the late October one.
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys do. I wanted to talk to you primarily about elk and talk a little bit about the units that you're working this year and what you've been seeing in conditions. So let's just start with, we had a wet winter and a good spring, a lot of moisture, but what have you seen this summer and then leading up now into, we're around the 8th of September now, what are conditions like out there?
Well, I'll start off with, echoing exactly what you said about the spring and the winter. I haven't seen the country look like it did, especially down in lower 3C and down into 3A. It greened up. A lot of weeds, but the elk seem to do really well down what resident elk we do have in 3C. And horn growth was the best I've seen it in 10 or 12 years from summer velvet. We have a pretty good group of bulls that we watch, that kind of hang that 3A, 3C boundary, and they looked really good this year. The best I've ever seen them. So conditions going into, May and June which they've done, 75, 80% of their growth by then, it was looking really promising. We had quite a bit of water in the tanks, and the guzzlers were full, and it was looking pretty good. But from June and July standpoint, somebody forgot to order the monsoons up here, and boy, it's really dried up. We had a lot of, just sunny, hot, windy days, and you could just watch those dirt tanks just dry up. And there's still lots of areas in 3A that are just brown grass, and some of 3A even still looks like that. So spotty conditions, it didn't really hurt the antler growth as far as I'm concerned. We're still seeing some great bulls in 3A and 3C and 3B, and just the conditions are a little bit different this year. Usually it's green, and the elk are, for the most part, spread out, but, we do have some groups of, centralized elk where there is a little bit of green, and where the tanks are full. So,
Mike, I know historically you also will be doing some hunts in Unit 1. I understand you're not doing them this year in Unit 1, but I'm sure you've been up there. I'm sure you've been around. What are conditions like over in Unit 1 compared to maybe, say, 3C?
Quite a bit different. I am spending a fair amount of time in 3B, which it borders Unit 1 up there. I have not been over on the far eastern edge, but I know, and from what I understand, they do have and have got quite a bit of monsoon over there, and some, timely storms that really helped it. 3B, it looks a lot better than 3C does, especially that upper, higher country of 3B, Lake Mountain and up along, the southern end of that unit. It looks really good. It looks like a normal monsoon summer, other than maybe, the tanks aren't quite as full as they usually are. But 3B, at least the upper three quarters of it looks really good. And I'm just, assuming Unit 1, which I drove down that road. Unit 1 looks the same up there. So its conditions, it does look a lot better than 3C does and 4B.
If we don't get much moisture for those guys going out in those units you mentioned, 3A, 3C, 3B, 4A, 4B, some of that stuff up there, with spotty conditions, are dirt tanks literally dry, and are the elk congregated? So, for those guys that are listening, they're trying to get an edge on, where they're going to go and what have you, is, are you finding where you're finding elk, you're finding quite a few elk, and then there's areas of void?
Yes, there is some, generally this time of year, especially around the 1st of September, in our units, those elk just really like to start spreading out. That's really when it's the green is really grown, and they're working their way down north. So I'm still seeing some of that. This weekend I found a number of bulls that have worked their way, down south with a couple of good groups of cows. That picture I sent you last night, playing around when you asked if I wanted to do the podcast, that's way down low. And there was a solid 20 cows doing the same thing that they do every year. We have a number of tanks, at least in 3A and 3C, that have caught just, the few isolated big monsoon storms we had. We didn't get a lot of those grass rains. I call those grass rains, or, just tenths of an inch, that'll happen a couple of times during the week, and they'll really start to green things up. But, we did have some timely big storms that still move some water around. Scouting is going to be a key this year in some of these units. You don't want to go to one of your spots and find out that, hey, the two tanks within a couple of miles don't have water, and, the elk aren't there. So scouting's definitely going to play a key role in that. You might have to do a little running around if you haven't been to your unit in the last couple of weeks, just seeing where that water is. That's a blessing for us to be living right here. We pretty much out every night, and we're watching these storms and seeing where the water's coming, where it hasn't. So,
for sure, you mentioned antler growth, and say it's some of the best you've seen in the last 10 or 12 years. Is it one of the best years you've seen, or is it just one of the best years you've seen in the last decade?
I just think it's the best I've seen in the last decade. back right after the Rodeo Chetasky fire when we had all that new growth and had some, good spring and good summer rains, those elk could really blow up. Same with Unit 1. But, that's pretty much where how it's been this year.
Mike, what, as far as, elk bugling and behavior right now, what are they doing down there? Have they been fairly lethargic, or are they bugling, surprisingly bugling well, or what's the status out there?
I think it's, status quo for this type of year. It's usually shortly after Labor Day weekend we start, it just starts picking up a little bit more every day. I did notice last night as I was, watching 3 or 4 different groups of elk, those elk came out like they usually do at, 5 o'clock, but they came out and then they bedded right back down, and I didn't hear a bugle for maybe, 30, 45 minutes, but as soon as they got back on their feet, they got back to bugling, and I think it came from these hot afternoons we keep having. We're not, we're just not getting cooled down with those monsoon clouds and whatnot. So evenings have been a little bit slow. Mornings, we're even having warm evenings still up here. It's just a hot summer this year up in our area, and I'm sure it is all the way around the state. So, overall, the bugling's been about the same.
Do you think, you've seen it where the weekend before the hunt where they're just blowing their guts out. Is it almost, do you like the fact that they're not just going nutso and that, they'll probably save a bunch of that for during those 2 weeks of the archery season?
Yeah, I think, from watching the bulls this weekend and what we watched last weekend, they're doing the same things. It's just the hot temperatures aren't allowing them much time to keep doing it till 8 o'clock in the morning. It was 61 degrees this morning up here. It's actually going to cool down this week from what I'm looking at the weather, and hopefully they're going to, be able to start at 5 o'clock in the afternoon or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and maybe stay up and bugle till 8 o'clock, stay on their feet a little bit longer. But definitely these hot temperatures have definitely been affecting them.
What do you think about the opener being a pretty full moon and having those types of conditions for guys out there listening? How do you see it playing out, kind of that opening weekend and transitioning through the hunt with that moon period being full right there at the opening day?
Well, I'm a firm believer that moon definitely affects, elk activity during that time. We're lucky to hunt it for the entire month of September pretty much, and we always see, a typical full moon week at some time during the archery or the early rifle hunt. So, it's not anything new to us. You definitely don't get discouraged and start just pushing through your areas and blowing your elk out, in my mind, but I'm sure it's going to slow down. About time it gets going, it's going to slow down because of that full moon, but it'll bounce right back. Give them 3 or 4 days, and those conditions will turn around once that moon starts setting, earlier and earlier in the night. So, it'll just be typical full moon that we have to fight at least one time during the hunt.
Yeah, for sure. Mike, moving forward, what are some tips that you'd have for guys that are looking at, this Friday coming up, archery season starting, and maybe some of their first elk seasons, maybe, they need a little bit of tips to, get them through the hunt. What would you say a few things that they should remember? Well,
just first of all, probably be ready for these hot, dry temperatures. That is going to be one more challenge that we're all going to have to face this year, the hot, dry temperatures. Hopefully all their scouting's done and they've, or at least set how the elk are acting and where they're at, and, have a game plan there. But just be ready for these hot, dry conditions. We already touched on the full moon. Don't get discouraged there at the front end of the hunt, because the last 10 days of the archery hunt, I think, is gonna be really, really good. For some of maybe these trophy hunters, there's a lot of good bulls out there. These 4 and 5 year old bulls seem to be 330 type bulls this year, and some of them with extras are bumping 350. If you're looking for a trophy type bull, be patient. This will be a pretty good year if you can grind it out, and it's a great opportunity to kill those 375 plus type bulls if you're fortunate enough and luck's on your side and can get them found. This is a year to kill a really good bull.
Mike, you touch on something that I don't think we talk about enough, and that is, it's a 14-day archery season. The reality is there's some tough days in that 14 days. Even if it's a great season and everything's going well, talk a little bit about the mental mindset of staying tough when conditions get rough. What do you do personally to just keep plugging away?
Well, yeah, Jay, you hit it on the head there when it comes to I call it the grind. We've done it now for 15, 20 years, and we hunt, all 21 days of the early Arizona elk hunts, pretty much. It's something you gotta always be thinking about. Just if it takes even a 1-day break. During my recent sheep hunt I went on, I took about a 1-day break at day 5 and just stayed in camp one morning and ran to town and got a shower and come back and got refreshed. Just get your mental thought process, even refreshed along with your physical side of it, and took a break from it. It was on one of those days it was, raining and sprinkling a little bit, so I didn't miss a lot that day, but maybe taking a break from things for a half a day or something, or resting a little bit. Some of these clients, we push them as hard as they will physically go. But yeah, the mental game of it, that's something that I think you gotta do it a couple of times before you finally get used to it. I'm sure you've been there too, where, here you are on day 14 with an archery client, and you've had to kind of, keep him going day after day. Sometimes that's what it takes. So.
Yeah, it's kind of like a rhythm. I try not to get too high, don't get too low. Know that you're going to have some rough patches. You're going to have some weather screw you up. You're going to have, some people, working in on a bull, and you're working in on a bull, and you get your stock blown up. You just kind of keep plugging away, and I think that's great advice. Mike, you guys do such a great job with your team there at Burnt Timber Outfitters. Want to give you a chance to let the listeners know where they can follow along, and I look forward to seeing how you and Daniel and the crew do this year with all your clients.
Yeah, Jay, we appreciate those kind words. We keep ourselves small so that we can, kind of cater to those hunters. Try not to book a lot of people in the same unit, but we've got Jay Lewis and Daniel Franco and Devin Hancock and myself are pretty much the main players in it. We have a few people that'll help us, at some point or another during the year. But just a great bunch of guys to work with. They work together really well, and they're all hard workers and they all love doing what they're doing. They're people type of a person that is friendly and easy to get along with. So. Yeah, it's just a great team to be part of. We love doing what we're doing, and so.
BurntTimberOutfitters.com, right?
Yes, but BurntTimberOutfitters.com. We're all on Instagram, and it's just either Mikey H or Devin Hancock or Franco, and then _BTO on Instagram. Jay's also on Instagram. J. Lewis _BTO. So.
Awesome, man. Well, I look forward to, you guys always shoot some giants. I look forward to seeing how your season progresses, and just thanks for the update and the forecast, and just keep plowing away and knock them down, all right?
We appreciate all you do and all your support, Jay. You're a great friend, and we enjoy talking to you, and good luck to you for your hunts this year also.
All right, buddy. Take care. God bless.
You too.